Hello. So, welcome to the second part of our discussion for the month of August 2023. And I'm talking about opportunities, moments, and greatness. That opportunities ultimately come to all of us. Opportunities eventually come to everybody. That the issue is not whether opportunities will come to your way or not, but whether you will be prepared when these opportunities come or not. That regardless of your current situation, your current circumstances, you can begin to create certain conditions that will make opportunities come your way. That regardless of what you appear not to have as a person, it's foolishness to just resign to faith. It is not wisdom to be looking forward to a better tomorrow if a person is not doing anything, if a person is careless in the present. And based on that, I say we can create certain conditions that will make opportunities come our way. So, on the basis of that, what are the ways that we can create these conditions that I'm talking about? In what ways can we begin to maybe take positive steps that will ensure that certain opportunities come our way? Now, the first one, and I think I have about nine of them. The first one is to understand the process. Understand the process. What do I mean by understanding the process? It is important for you as a person to know that greatness has a process. That greatness is not accidental. We're not talking about maybe somebody born into a royal family, being a child of a king, or having huge inheritance. That's not, remember what I've talked about in the first part of the video. I'm saying that becoming great is not accidental. It has a process. It has it has like a structure, a system that you can explain. It's not just something that just happened arbitrarily. And if you understand that greatness has a process, another way of saying that is that greatness has stories. The fact that you don't know the stories, the fact that the story is not obvious to you does not mean there is none. I take that again. Greatness are stories. The fact that you don't know the stories, or the fact that you don't know the stories yet, does not mean there is none. Greatness are stories. It can be explained. So if that's why if you read about great inventors, about their childhood, one of the inventors, it was said that at a very early age, he would just separate himself, and one day the parents were looking for him and they're like, "Oh, where are you?" Say, "Oh, I'm thinking, don't you think?" Imagine a child saying that to their parents. And other people, some will say, "Oh, maybe at a very tender age they've been fascinated by maybe playing with computers, or at a very tender age they've been fascinated by cars, by trading and things like that." So you can see that that's the potential that we're talking about. That's the seed of greatness. And then over time they have maybe been exposed to different things, different conditions, different circumstances until they became great. So greatness has stories. It has a process. And in the Bible, Proverbs chapter number 10, verses 4 and 5. Proverbs 10, 4 and 5. It says, "He who deals with a slack arm becomes poor." He who deals with a slack arm becomes poor. Now, before we go into the second part of it, that is, you can see, he who deals with a slack arm becomes poor. That's a process. That is, people don't just become poor, right? And by extension, you can say people don't just become rich. People don't just become influential. People don't just become successful. People don't just become great in life. People don't just live phenomenal life. People don't just live impactful life. They become it. Something happens. Something happens. So people don't just fail. I remember when I was in high school, what you call high school now, we had or a vice principal then that will always say something like, "You don't fail at once, you fail gradually. You don't fail at once, you fail gradually." So, children, people just started making jest of her. People started calling her things like, "Oh, mama, gradually." But essentially, what she was saying was very powerful. Not many people actually took notice of a word of wisdom then, which essentially is that you sow seeds of failure by the choices you make. The same way you sow seeds of success, you sow seeds of ignoble living, the same way you sow seeds of greatness. So people don't just fail, people don't just succeed. It is something that you can explain. And the same thing is about ordinary living and impactful living. So failure can be explained, success can be explained, greatness can be explained, smallness can be explained, ignoble living can be explained, impactful living can be explained. There is nothing mystical, there is nothing beyond maybe human understanding that you cannot explain. So, and this is something that most time, maybe when you see some decisions that people make, and maybe the consequences, whether positively or negatively, before you can maybe comprehensively understand what they have done, you may need to actually talk to them after a while. You may need to maybe observe their life or after a while to actually see that, oh, this person did these things and they got this result. I mean, I once worked in a place where I had opportunities to interact with what you can call, or the people you can call the high and mighty leaders and things like that. And for me, I said, oh, my key takeaway from the place was that, oh, these people are not different from me. And that's not out of pride or anything. It's just a way of challenging myself that these people don't have two heads. They go to toilet, they eat like yourself and things like that. So they are not different from me. It made me to challenge myself. Oh, if you also begin to put certain things in place, if you are conscientious, if you begin to consciously make certain decisions, certain choices, you can actually end up doing something phenomenal with your life. So once you understand that riches can be explained, greatness can be explained, success can be explained. If you see maybe a rich person that is rich legitimately, now not somebody that is cutting corners, or you see maybe an elderly person in deep poverty, it's not just maybe a mystery that only God can understand. We don't know. It can be explained. The fact that you don't know it on the surface does not mean you cannot explain. If you see a company that is big, that keeps expanding, if you see maybe another company that is just going down, that doesn't do or that sinks after a while, there is a way you can understand it. There is a science, there is an art to it. It is not just up to God. Otherwise, everybody will remain stuck. Otherwise, everybody is hopeless, because some people don't even know God. Some people cannot even communicate with God. So how do you know what becomes of their lot and things like that? So, but when you begin to resign to faith that, oh, these things cannot be explained, it's as good as living in the dark ages. As simple as that. I remember I've shared with us before that everything that you see in the world today, the basis for advancement as we have in the world today, can be traced to what is called the age of enlightenment. That is when people became enlightened. Enlightenment, people's eyes became open. People could actually could see that, oh, there is a reason, there is a science for this. Rationality began to take over. People began to see that, oh, beyond maybe some religious explanations that were not necessarily true, we can study nature, we can understand maybe the science behind thunder, behind rainfall, and things like that. And that was the basis for the Industrial Revolution, everything that we know in the world today, the IT, anything you want to talk about, they can all be traced to the time when people began to reason, when people began to question things and they began to subject things to empirical testing and other form of verifiable evidence like that. So what I'm saying is that in life, generally speaking as well, events that happen can be explained. The fact that maybe they are beyond you as a person or beyond your current state of knowledge does not mean they cannot be explained. And if you see, for example, some countries that are perennially broke, they are always in debt. So even if after maybe advocating for debt forgiveness, after a while they find themselves indebted again, and it's like an endless cycle, you can explain that as well. And some countries are doing well, you can explain that as well. Some families are doing very well, some they are struggling perpetually. It does not mean you cannot explain these things. Now, the reason I'm saying that is that when people begin to think there is something inexplicable about success, about greatness in life, then they will begin to think that it is beyond them. When we begin to think that there is something inexplicable, there is something that somebody somewhere is hiding from us, then they begin to exclude themselves. They begin to think it's beyond them. They begin to give excuses when they are supposed to be taking positive steps, positive actions. And this is actually why many people will just die ordinarily in life. Many people will live and you cannot remember anything remarkable about them. You cannot remember any impact about them, because when they are faced with maybe one challenge or the other, or when they set out to achieve some things and they are faced with obstacles, with difficulties, they give up easily. They begin to resign to all sort of negativity, and I'll talk more about that shortly. But what I'm saying is that when a person understands that greatness as a process is something that can be explained, it is easier for them to actually position themselves accordingly. But when they begin to say it is beyond them, or when they begin to say, oh, it's up to God, we don't know what will happen, and things like that, to a very large extent, they excuse themselves and they just live like every other person. If you watch very well, the people that believe in whatever will be, will be. The people that have this lackadaisical, this carefree attitude to life, most of the time, they don't do great things in life. Most of the time, they don't amount much. Most of the time, they just live like every other person. So that is what I'm talking about. So that Proverbs chapter 10, 4-5 says, he who deals with the slack and becomes poor, becomes poor. Now, the second part of it, the second part, he said, he who deals with the slack and becomes poor, then he who gathers in summer is a wise son. He who gathers in summer is a wise son. Now, that second part suggests that wisdom consists in being able to differentiate between seasons. He who gathers in summer, he who can distinguish between summer and winter, the time of gathering and the time of harvesting, or the time of watering, is a wise son. So we can say wisdom is about recognizing and maximizing seasons and maximizing opportunities. So the failure or the inability to recognize and capitalize on opportunities is the reason for many age-long frustrations. The failure to recognize, the inability to recognize and capitalize on opportunities or moments is the reason behind many age-long frustrations in life. So people don't just fail, people don't just become stagnated in life. There are reasons for such, like I've explained, and the fact that these reasons are not plain, the fact that these reasons are not obvious to us, the fact that they are not plain to the naked eye, does not mean we cannot understand what is going on behind the scene. You never know what is going on in people's hearts and minds, for example. You never know the struggles they are having within themselves. So I remember I had a job one time, and everybody around me then felt, oh, it was a good job, it has prospect and things like that. But deep down me, I knew I was meant for more. So I wasn't very, very happy. I wasn't very, very satisfied. And I was always praying, always checking what could I be missing, until I eventually got it. And I moved on from there. But I might have stayed there, and after a while became satisfied, quote and unquote, until things begin to go wrong. And then people begin to say, oh, we don't know why this person is very smart. How come they are stuck in life and things like that? So that is what I'm saying, that most times you don't know the struggles that people have had within themselves. You don't know the steerings, the inner nudgings, or the perpetual dissatisfaction that they have endured over time. This is why maybe somebody will read medicine and they will end up in music. This is why somebody will be doing well, maybe I met someone that said she was into architecture. Imagine architecture, and after a while she quit and she started doing something related to maybe hairstyling and things like that. So you don't know what is inside people. You don't know what is yearning for expression inside of them. But most time what happens is people suppress these inner steerings, this inner dissatisfaction over a long time, and then they become stuck in life. And the result is what people now see. The consequence is what is plain to us. And people now begin to maybe postulate. People begin to give explanations on the basis of what is external. You don't know what is inside people. And that is very related to what I want to share next before I wrap up for this month. Remember, so I said the first one is to understand that there is a process. Understand there is a process. So that also means that most times people try to cut corners. People try to become rich overnight. People try to do great things overnight because they don't understand the process. In every field, people don't just appear on the scene. No, most times you have behind the scenes efforts that people have put in place. The result is just what you are seeing. The fact that you don't know the process does not mean there is no process. And that's why people say things like men's secrets are in their stories. That when you see people that maybe are doing great things, particularly if they are doing it over time, before you conclude that they are lucky, before you conclude that things are just good for them, God is just good to them, or maybe Satan is evil to you. No, take time to actually understand that most times there is a behind the scene that we do not understand. So that is the first thing I like us to understand when it comes to creating opportunities, creating moment, or positioning oneself for opportunities and moments of greatness in life. Now, let me quickly talk about, or let me start to talk about the second thing before we wrap up for this month. And the second thing is to pay attention to what is inside of you. Pay attention to what is within you. You can call it maybe your vision, your passion, inner dissatisfaction, inner drive, motivation, anything you want to call it. In simple terms, the driving force behind most inventions, behind great enterprises, is someone with a burning desire that will just not settle for the status quo. Somebody that has maybe every reason to be okay, to be satisfied with the way things are going around them, but they are driven. Something inside of them is pushing them that this is what you're supposed to do. You can, like I said, you can call it passion, you can call it vision, you can call it inner dissatisfaction, inner drive, inner motivation. There is just something that is inside each and every one of us. Over time, some people learn to give expression to such. Over time, some people suppress such. Some people just have a burning desire that they won't give up on, that keep them awake at night, that keep them maybe searching, praying, asking questions. I read about, I think one of the inventors or somebody, I can't remember exactly who the person was now, that as a young child, he grew up with so many things that they were doing. I think Steve Jobs, and he wrote so many letters to people involved in computer and things like that, and maybe more than 50 letters, or maybe more than 100, I can't remember the exact numbers now, and only one person, I think the founder of HP, replied, and that formed part of the basis for what we know about Apple and things like that today. So this curiosity, this burning desire, this drive, some may call it ambition. It's not just something personal, just something selfish. You just want to do something. Something is stirring up in your heart. Maybe you have a good job, but you just can't sit still. It's like something is within you pushing down. You are meant for something beyond this. Or you are in a disadvantaged environment, but something is pushing you down. You can do something. Our life should not end like this. You have that drive, that passion, a deep-seated conviction, a vision beyond your current state, beyond your current environment, beyond your current circumstance. So regardless of what it is, even in the Bible, Jesus speaking, he said, I have a baptism to be baptized with, and I am stretched until it is accomplished. It's in the Bible like that, Luke 12, 48 to 52, if you read it. If people like Martin Luther say, oh, I have a dream, there is something, I can see a better tomorrow, a better future. People like Mother Teresa, people like Nelson Mandela, the Wright brothers, that people just have that push, that somebody in deep poverty just say, oh, must we always remain like this? We can do something about this situation, or about this lack, about this one. Somebody that grew up in an environment where the parents are always fighting, oh, there has to be more to life than this. So, or somebody as a child, they just find themselves selling things. So it's like something is pushing you. You have that inner drive, that inner desire, that inner motivation. Most times it's already there. You don't even know it in plain terms, but it's there. So it is important to understand to begin to ask yourself, what is driving me? Beyond maybe getting a paycheck at the end of the month, what is driving me? What is motivating me? What is that heartfelt desire? Now that is important because I'm sure you have read about rich people that maybe went bankrupt later, or that committed suicide, or that maybe people that you think, oh, they have everything going on for them, and then they just maybe made one negative decision. You're like, oh wow, how could this person do this thing? It's because they have that deep sense of emptiness that over time they could not respond to it properly, and then they just made a negative decision. So it is important to begin to ask yourself, what is actually driving me in life? What is motivating me? What is that inner desire that, oh, if I had like all the money in this world, what is that one thing that I would still wish I could do? That may be the pointer to where your greatness lies. That is what I'm talking about. That I say it's not just about making money. It's not even just about having followership online. It's not about having so many friends. No. In the Bible, it says the heart knows its own bitterness and a stranger does not share its joy. You know what is making you happy. You know deep down within you whether you are happy, regardless of what people say, regardless of what people call you, you know deep down within you. So most times it is when people don't respond to this over time that negative results, negative consequences take place. It is when people don't respond to it over time that they become victim of what is around them, that they become victim of external circumstances, that they become victim of maybe external pressure and things like that. So, and of course, if you are a Christian, you have the Holy Spirit of God, you have the Spirit of God within you. That should give you an advantage. And based on that, I want to wrap up this month. Our time is gone. I don't want to stretch it unnecessarily. But it is important to understand that inside each and every one of, whether you go to the remotest village in the earth, there is that stand, there is something inside each and every one of us that should guide the choices, the decisions that we make. That beyond making money, beyond having friends and things like that, that is the pointer to a person's impact in life. Now, what have I talked about this month? I've said I'm talking about opportunities, movement, and greatness. That there is a science, there is an art to greatness. It's something that you can explain. It's not just something mystical, not just something that is up to God, that you cannot explain it so that you just believe in carelessly. And that greatness is rooted in opportunities and moments. That most of the time, it is when people miss their moment that they live a life of perpetual frustration. Now, I'll continue this discussion next month when I'll be talking about opportunities, moments, and greatness part 2. Opportunities, moments, and greatness part 2. Now, if this has impacted you, this has inspired you, this has motivated you, maybe something in particular stood out to you, I'd like you to like the video, share it with somebody, share it with your friends, your loved ones, listen to it again as well yourself, and share it with as many people as possible. Let them also be inspired, let them be blessed by it, and I'm sure that the effect will be phenomenal in that sense. Now, if you've got any questions about anything that I've talked about, or maybe your work with God, about understanding the ways of God like I started with, and things like that, if you drop me a message, send me an email, I'll be happy to answer your questions to guide you in this regard. And also in terms of our next meeting will be the third Friday in the month of September, and I'll be talking about, like I said, opportunities, movement, and greatness. That's September the 15th, 2023. So thank you so much for tuning in. God bless you, and see you next time. Bye bye.